apparently people are watching the recordings. Um, all righty. So today, what I wanted to focus on was longer words, weird endings,
Hmm.
and we can, if if we're going a little bit fast or a little bit slow, you can let me know.
Okay.
Um, but so you were at, remind me, you were at Yom Kippur services?
Yes. Hmm.
So you don't have to do a formal question answer thing, but what did you enjoy about it? What did you learn? Any questions?
I enjoyed really everything about it. I enjoyed seeing the people being called to tour, and mostly just seeing the people of the community. Just
Mhm.
being there. It's one thing to watch it online, and it's another thing to actually be there and shake people's hands and introduce yourself and things of that nature. I think when we were going over the indiscretions that you may have committed, and hitting yourself on the chest. That was interesting. It was something about like the physical, touching of hearing some of the things that you may have been guilty of, and that was really interesting. Something so small, you know, can really have an impact on. I really like that.
It runs the gamut of what are all of the possible categories of things.
Yes,
Right? And then every time we say, at least for me, every time I say one of them, I think about, oh, here are five other things related. Um,
yes,
and even if I don't relate to one of the things, to one of those topics that we're talking about, um, at that point in time, I know that there's somebody in the room who does.
yes. And the thing for me, hearing those, it helped me to focus on things that I know I can do better. The following year or the next year.
Hmm. Good. Did you have any questions from the high holiday season?
Uh, not off, not right now, not offhand. If I think of some, I'll definitely email you
Yeah.
and let you know. I do have one
Great.
question pertaining to Hebrew.
Hmm.
The Holam.
Hmm.
Uh, it to me, it looks like a guy shooting a jump shot, shooting a basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know if you picked up on that,
That's
but
how I learned it.
is that right? Really?
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. It's not just me. Is that a Vav?
So it's weird. We were actually talking about that today. Uh, Pam and I were talking about that earlier, and we're going to get there actually a little bit later.
Okay.
I'll, in fact, I'll give it away. I think it's on this slide. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so um, it is a vav, but it doesn't function like a vav. So
Okay.
there are some places. So how do we say this? Um, if you've got, how do you say this? Every consonant,
Hmm.
almost every consonant in a Hebrew word is going to require a vowel. So if you've got a vav, let's say you've got a vav in a word and it's got the kamats under it.
Hmm.
Curtis, what would that sound like?
Va.
Nice. Great. Okay. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. Great. If you've got a vav and it's got this under it, what would that sound like?
Ve.
Nice. Okay. Here's where it gets tricky is when it's a cholam. Like you were saying, we were talking about something a little bit different, I think, earlier. But for example, in in word number three here, every syllable needs a vowel sound, right?
Hmm.
And a consonant. And most syllables are going to use a consonant. So what is the first syllable sound, Curtis, of number three?
That's Kamat's. I'm
Hmm.
forgetting what letter that is. I always get that confused with the one that's in two in the third, from the left. I should look over my notes.
Well, Pam, can you help us out? What letter is that?
Ah. It's an ayin.
It's an ayin. Okay.
Sounds like ah.
Right. It sounds like ah. So the big question is going to be, what in the world is going on here? Right. So there we have a vav, right? And we have an O sound. We know that it's going to make the vo sound. We know that we're going to pronounce the vav because we're not going to have a syllable that starts with a vowel sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very, very rare that we have a syllable that starts with a vowel sound. So because of that, we know that that's a vav, and the dot over it is the cholam. So it is a vav and a cholam. So what would this word be, Pam?
Avon.
Nice. Does that make sense, Curtis?
It does.
Yeah. So it says vo when it follows a letter that already has a vowel. So Curtis, this is a word that you probably know. Let's try. Can you try number 1?
I can try it. Is it maison?
Nope. So you're reading too fast. What's the first letter?
It's a mem.
And the vowel underneath it?
It is a harik.
Which makes a
E.
Nice. So how would you put the mem and the chirik together?
Me.
Nice. And what was this letter here?
That's is it a sadi?
Yep. So how do you put the me and a t sound together?
Me.
Great. So meets, and it's a shva, so we know that that's just our syllable stopper. So our first syllable here is meets, and then what do you think the second syllable is?
On. Well, that's a halam. So is it on? On.
What's the last letter?
That's a tet.
Or tough, but yeah,
A tough.
sound.
Tough. Ot.
Okay, so close. Because remember, this symbol says vo when it follows a letter that already has a vowel. So now try saying that second syllable.
Vat.
Okay, very close, but remember this O makes an O sound, so it'd be vote.
Oh, mitzvot.
There we go, mitzvot.
The word, yes.
Mitzvot. See, this is a tricky one. This is why we saved this one for last, but we're doing it early. And Pam, can you try number 2?
B'mitzvot
That's something that we're going to learn a little bit later. So let's pretend for our purposes right now, because we're going to learn that later today also. Try now.
B'mitzvotav.
Nice. And we're going to learn about that a little bit later. So Curtis, did that answer your question that you asked a couple?
It does. It does.
While ago? Sometimes also, and this is, Pam, what you were asking earlier. Sometimes it gets really tricky, and the vav has a dagesh, a dot in the middle. So the way, Pam, that you would know that this is a vav and not an oo sound is because it has a vowel in it. So Pam, how would you pronounce this word?
Vitsivanu.
Exactly. Fantastic. Great.
Only, I know that people say Vitsivanu, but it really says Vitsivanu.
Right. So that first syllable.
There's not much difference in the way that sounds now that I say it out loud.
Right. Exactly. All right. So we already learned Rabbi Feivel's syllable words or syllable rules, but we're going to learn a little bit of a different way. And
Rabbi Sydney,
Mhm.
can I ask you where those are? Because I looked at the syllabus
Mhm.
and it said that we were going to learn them, but it didn't say what they were. And then I
Mhm.
looked at something else and it also didn't say what they were.
Yeah.
So is there a place that I missed seeing them?
So they are, when I send out these emails, I always send out the slideshows that I use as well. So it's going to be in those slideshows.
Okay, so it's going to be in one of the links to the slideshow.
Mhm.
Okay,
Exactly.
all right.
Exactly. So for if you're looking to practice Hebrew over the next couple months by yourself, this book is a really great way to practice. Teach yourself to read Hebrew. For some people, it works as a great from scratch Hebrew learning book. What I don't love about it from scratch is that it teaches letters and vowels together, but for some people that works. What I do like it for is that it's got some really great reading exercises. And so I would definitely recommend. It's this little tiny yellow book. It's not very expensive. You can get it on Amazon. Teach yourself to read Hebrew. Great for practice, and then it also comes with some recordings if you buy the right edition. So the way that they teach long words in here is that a Hebrew syllable almost always begins with a consonant. So it consists of either one, a consonant plus a vowel, or two, consonant, vowel, consonant. So Curtis, will you try to read from right to left here these examples of consonant plus vowel?
Okay. Sha,
Nice.
ba, me.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, I mean the third one. Let's see. Day,
Right.
fo.
Very, very close. What's that letter? The consonant?
Uh, oh man, it's the tip of my tongue. It's the monkey one.
The monkey one.
Yeah.
Oh.
What is that letter?
Do you know your alphabet?
I thought I did.
Okay, so no, do you
It's,
know the
it's
song? Because sometimes it's easy to sing. It's easier to sing the song in your head.
I don't know the song. I don't know the
That
song. I know
makes it.
shame on
I
me.
okay. That's your homework assignment for the next 3 months. Is you got to memorize the alphabet song because then you'll remember all
Okay.
the names of the letters. So
Okay.
this letter is kuf.
Koof. Koof. Koof.
Yeah. So once you memorize the alphabet song, once it gets nailed in your head and it's really annoying, then you'll remember the names of all the letters.
Okay.
Great.
Would that be ko?
Yes, there we go. Great. So that also answers the question you asked earlier, right? If it's just after another syllable, it counts as a vowel.
Is right. Okay.
All right. And Pam, let's try number 2, if you can read from right to left.
Ba, meet, dare, cove, shal.
Beautiful. Okay, so those are the 2 ways that a Hebrew syllable can begin, or a Hebrew syllable can be. Another example would be if uh, if your word starts with, and I don't know if I have this on the next slide, but if your word starts with oo, some words start with oo as its own syllable. That's because oo and v both mean and. So if it's oo, if it's the oo version of and, then it'll start with no consonants. But that's really the only example I can think of where there's no consonant in a syllable. All right. So let's try some of the following examples. Can you remind me, have we already done this?
Yes,
We
I
have already
remember
done this?
this. Yes.
Okay. All right, so maybe we will pass this. Okay. Um, let's see. Syllables and the Shiva. So when a Shiva appears at the beginning of a word, it's a syllable by itself. So, and I know we did this also. I just want to review this. So
This is wonderful. This is exactly what I was talking about reviewing.
great, great. So when a Shiva appears at the beginning of the word, it's a syllable by itself. So Curtis, can you read this top word? And don't even try to read it all together. Just try reading one syllable at a time.
Okay. Not sure what syllable Shiva makes. It's at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So when it appears at the beginning of a word, it's a syllable by itself, which means that it just makes an sound.
Okay. So you wouldn't pronounce the L.
So you would pronounce it as ol plus so it would be l.
L. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
L. Had. Want to say leaf.
So real close. This is again you're confusing your fe with your kuf, which is very common. So this is a kuf again. So you were right with li. So how would you say it?
I'm not sure,
You
but I
got
did
it.
apologize in advance.
You're good. So it's li plus whatever sound the kuf makes. What sound does a kuf make?
I forgot. Q.
So it makes a k sound.
Okay.
So it would be
Leak.
leak. Nice. So now try the word all together.
La had leak.
Nice. Great. So when you've got a Shiva at the beginning of the word, it's a syllable by itself. This is that example. So le or ve or be if it's at the beginning of a word. If you've got two Shivas that appear in a row, the second one is a syllable all by itself. So Pam, let's try the second one.
Mish pachot.
Nice. Right? So that mish is the mish, the Shiva under the mish, you don't pronounce, but the Shiva underneath the pei you do. So mish pechot. Great. In most other cases, the Shiva indicates the end of a syllable, which means it doesn't make an extra little sound. So the examples of that we have on this page are had and mish. Right? Had and mish. The Shivas under there don't make any extra sounds. When you are reading a new word, I'm going to show this on the slide before. When you're reading a new word and you want to divide it into syllables, one easy way to do this is the first thing that you do is every time you see a Shiva, you write a syllable line. Okay. When it is when the Shiva is not at the beginning of the word or not after another Shiva, it just carries on with that vowel beforehand. So Pam, where else on this word would you draw a syllable line?
After the resh.
Great. And I have all the answers on here, I realize, but that's okay. Right,
You
because
Oh, I see I see
do.
where they are.
I do. Here, let's see if I can do it this way. If I can draw.
That's okay. I won't look. I didn't even notice it.
Oh, it's not working.
I
Hold
wasn't
on.
looking at that part.
Let me see if I can do this. Yeah. Ready? Memorize everything before I go over it here. Okay. So Curtis, let's try it with that second word. You don't even have to pronounce it. We're just going to practice these syllable lines. So where would you put a syllable line for that second word?
Um, would it be after the yod?
Uh-huh. Because you always know there's if it's a shava, there's going to be a syllable line there. Where's going to be the next one? Because remember, each syllable is going to be either consonant vowel or consonant vowel consonant.
Hmm. Would it be after the shuruk? I mean, that's not a
Mm-hmm.
shuruk. Well, yeah, it is a shuruk. Yeah.
Yep. Next one.
After the lamed.
So there is one after the lamed, but you're missing one.
Okay. Would it be between the lamed and the shin? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly, because this one's actually not such a tricky one because A, you know that there's a syllable line after the shva,
Hmm.
but then it's pretty easy because you've got, okay, consonant vowel, syllable line, consonant vowel, syllable line, consonant vowel, syllable line, and then the only one that's consonant vowel consonant is because it's just the end of the word. There's no vowel that you need to draw a syllable line after. All right, so now, Pam, can you try telling me where all the syllable lines are in the next word?
Okay, after the vav,
Mm-hmm.
after the yud,
Great. Oops.
after the bet.
Why would it be after the
Oh,
bet?
wait a minute. Not after the bet, after the resh. And that would be
Great.
all.
Great. So why would it be after the resh?
Because it's bar, it's not ba. If there
Mm-hmm.
were if there were a shva under the bet, then it would be beret,
Mm-hmm.
beret, but
Okay.
there's not one.
Exactly. So that's a case of the consonant vowel consonant. Um, great. All right. Let's try Curtis. Where would I put the lines of this next word?
After the shin,
Mm-hmm.
um, after the noon.
Okay. And there's one more.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So remember, it's one vowel per syllable.
Oh, after the cough.
So close after the cough. But if I do after the cough, what's the issue there?
Uh, the yod and the comments under the noon.
Yeah, the yud doesn't have a vowel.
Right.
So the yud is actually part of that e sound. So she, chi, nato. So yud kind of uh, catches on to the chirik, and we've seen that elsewhere. We've seen the where the chirik has a yud with it. All right, and let's
It's like it
try.
belongs to it.
Exactly, exactly. So with a chirik, a lot of times you'll just have the yud next to it, and the function of that is way back in the day, or not even so much back in the day when we're reading Torah. If you're ever looking at Hebrew word without any of the syllable or without any of the vowel markings on it, you'll know that it makes an e sound. Like if I were to type this word in without vowels, um, you would know that it makes an e sound because there's that yud marker there. You see that a lot too with if you've got a hey at the end of the word, it's a good indicator that the vowel before that was a kamatz. So any word that ends with an ah sound and has a hey at the end makes it a lot easier to read it in Hebrew because I've got that hey at the end to tell me what vowel that is. So yuds and heys were used for a long time as the vowels. It wasn't until much later that we added in these little markings. All right. And Pam, where do we put the syllable lines for this last word?
after the vav,
Mm-hmm.
after the aleph,
Mm-hmm.
after the nun. No, I'm sorry, after the chet. Is that a
Nice.
het? No,
It is a chet.
right
You're
there,
right.
before the nun.
Mm-hmm. Great job. All right. Does
Nach.
all, yes, nach. Does all of that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Va'anat. Va'anachnu.
Mm-hmm. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Um, all right. So another way that we can go through this, and I'll just go through this a little bit faster, is Rabbi Feivel's way of teaching it. So Hebrew, unlike English, follows that pattern consonant, vowel, consonant consistently. We talked about this. We expanded on this a little bit last time. The only exceptions are what we tripped on a little bit earlier is when you've got the aleph or the yud as our helper letters, like in Bereshit. And the Shava messes everything up as well. Every syllable can have between 0 and 3 consonants. The only case I can think of where it would have 0 consonants is if you've got an oo at the beginning of a word. Every syllable has exactly 1 vowel, not counting shva. Or sometimes counting shva, sometimes not. When breaking up words into syllables, just count the vowels. You'll know how many syllables are in the word. See, this is why these rules are confusing to me, because rule number 3, I like to reword as shva messes everything up. Right? That's all you need to know for rule number 3 is shva messes everything up. Right? The rule number 2, 1 vowel per syllable, works 100% of the time except for when there's a shva present in the word. If you see a shva,
unless you count that as is that not counted as a vowel?
So we'll get there. If you see a shva, you draw a syllable line after it every time. The shva functions as a syllable break, thus ending each syllable in which it's present. So the way that Rabbi Feivel teaches it is that, in a sense, when that shva is on its own, it counts as the vowel in that syllable. So if it's going le olam, right, the sound there is kind of like a vowel, right? So that case, it would be consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, right? Or the natan, or the chaye, right? Then it's going to count as, it's going to make a small glottal sound. If the shva is after another vowel, like we went over before, it does not make a separate sound. So for example, baruch, right? So so consonant, vowel, consonant, the shva doesn't count as a vowel. Bar-hu, the shva here doesn't count as a vowel because it's just ending the syllable. Le does count as a syllable, or it does count as a syllable. The there makes a vowel sound. But had, the shva, doesn't make that vowel sound. It just ends the syllable. I find that a little confusing, but for some that's a helpful way to look at it. So if
the First Hebrew Primer calls it a vowel, and I find it strange that it calls it a vowel when it's not acting as a vowel under the dalet of lahadlik.
Right. So basically what it is, the easiest way to categorize a shva is a syllable ender. It's always going to end a syllable. You can always put a syllable line after a shva. Every single time you see a shva, you'll put a syllable line after it. The only tricky thing is knowing Does it make its own sound or not? Is it its own syllable or is it connected to the letter before? Right, so what would, so Curtis, how would you know that, what's one way you would know that a shava makes its own syllable?
If it's at the beginning of a word.
Great, if it's at the beginning. And Pam, what's another way that you would know it makes its own sound?
If there are two shvas next to each other.
Great. And then in every other case, it's just ending the syllable. Doesn't make a separate sound. Fantastic. All right. One other thing, I know we talked about this last time, but important to go over, Hebrew words are normally pronounced with the accent on the last syllable. Some words are pronounced with the accent on the second to last syllable, but without a knowledge of Hebrew grammar, we can't know where to put the accent on a Hebrew word. So when in doubt, put that accent at the end of the word. You'll be right most of the time, but in many Hebrew prayer books, words that are not pronounced with the accent on the last syllable are shown with an accent mark. So, Pam, can you read this word?
Ha'ela.
Great. And you put the syllable on the A, which is, or the accent on the A sound. Right, ha'ela. Great. All right, are we ready for some unusual endings? Okay.
We can do it, can't we?
We'll try.
We'll try. We can do it. I think I have faith in both of you. So when the last letter of a word is a Curtis, tell me what this letter is.
Right there. A chet.
Nice. When the last letter of a word is a chet and the vowel underneath is a patach, the combination is pronounced ach, not cha. So it messes everything up. Sometimes you'll have some really nice prayer books that will put this patach a little bit to the side so that you know it's so that you know how it's supposed to sound. But I don't have that font here, so we're going to do it the difficult way. So just as an example, this word number 1 here is going to be koach. It looks like kocha, but it's not. So it's koach because that patach and the chet switch places. All right. How about Curtis? Can you try?
This is only at the last. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is only if it's the last letter of the word, right?
Only if it's the last letter of the word, exactly.
Okay.
All right. So Curtis, can you try number 2? So just look at that. Start out with that first syllable because you know what the second syllable is going to be already.
Ruch.
Cool. So ru, you got right. The second syllable is going to be.
That's a sharuk, right?
Yep. So you got ru, but remember when you've got the patach under the
chet. It has the ah sound.
So put those two together.
Is that ruach?
Yes, ruach. Nice. And also, Curtis, I'm gonna give you number 3 also. Try number 3.
Nach.
Okay, close. You're missing a vowel here though.
Noach.
There we go. Who is Noach?
Noah.
There we go. Nice. All right. And Pam, try number 4.
Shabbat.
Not Shabbat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shabach.
There we go. Great.
I'm sorry. My mom said not so loud. Shabach.
All good.
No, I was seeing that as a as a tav.
I'm going to make this easier for both of you, and I'm just going to set aside this ach ending so that you know that each of these words is going to end with an ach sound. All right. So Curtis, try number 5.
Mashiach.
There we go.
Hey,
All right, Pam, try number 6.
shaliach.
Nice. And Curtis, try number 7.
Mm. Saray. Oh, 7.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. I don't know.
Okay. So what's that first letter there?
Is that a stomach?
Uh-huh. What's the vowel after the samech?
It's a holam.
Great. So put those two together.
So
Yeah. So, and then
leah.
there we go. So leach. Great. Right. Once we know that rule, that makes it 10 times easier, right?
It definitely helps.
Yeah. We know, and it's nice because yes, it's an annoying ending. It's different, but once we see that it's like a sight word. Once we see that ach at the end of the word, we're like, okay, good. I only have to figure out the other syllables because I know how this last one sounds. We talked a little bit about diphthongs, but they're definitely worth practicing. When you have a patach with a yud afterwards, what sound does that make?
I.
I. I. Great. So Pam, can you try number 1?
Alai.
Nice. Great. And Curtis, number 2.
Chai.
Nice. Pam, try number 3.
Banai.
And I noticed this earlier, when you have 2 ah sounds in a row, you like to shorten the first one. So say number 3 again.
Banai.
There we go. Thank you.
Is that what it is? I wondered why you kept having me repeat that. Banai.
There we go. Good job. And when you get more used to
Because I'm
it.
trying it out.
Hmm?
I understand what I'm doing. In English, we would call trying it out. It's a schwa sound in we call it a schwa in like international English or whatever. But it's when you say instead of really a letter.
Exactly. Right.
So I'm saying banai instead of banai. I've got you now.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. So Curtis, before we do number 4, let's draw some syllable lines because there's more than 2 syllables here. So where would you put the syllable lines for number 4?
After the aleph.
Mm-hmm.
After the holam.
Nice. And that's all we need. So now try one syllable at a time reading number 4.
Ah. Vo. T.
Very, very close. Avo. Remember, we've got our diphthongs like chai.
Yeah. I see what I'm doing. Tahi. Tai.
Yeah. So put all those 3 together. Avo.
Avo tai.
Nice. Like as in a necktie.
Mm-hmm.
Or tying your shoes. All right. I'm sorry, these new headphones. I don't know why Siri is freaking out. She told me it's okay. All right. All right. Pam, can you try number 5?
Die.
Right. Die means enough. Right? It doesn't mean to die. Die is enough. Like die, die, yenu. All right. And
Mm.
Curtis, where are you going to put the one syllable line in number 6?
Um, I'm gonna guess
Mm-hmm.
after the iron,
Very close. What's your second guess?
after the noon.
Not after the nun, because remember that yud messes everything up.
It definitely did in this
It
particular
did.
case.
So we are going to put a syllable line here because
Hmm.
that yud is part of the previous vowel.
Okay.
It's connected to the previous vowel. So now you've got a 2-syllable word. Try it out for number 6.
A ni, a
Okay.
nahi.
Yeah, Enai. Like Bill Nye, the science guy. So that's our diphthongs. Can I ask Curtis, how often do you listen to services um, online or go to services in Monroe?
Oh, I almost every Shabbat I'm listening to
Wonderful.
service somewhere. Yes.
Great. So the more you make, the more you, I think both of you, because both of you are watching from afar, the more you have the opportunity to try to sing along, um, the more this becomes more, the more this becomes natural to say, to pronounce all of this. Um, Alrighty, and you can start out with the tunes that are shorter, right? The ones that sound familiar. Anything you feel like you can sing along to. That's where the good practice comes in. Um, One other thing to know: coal. Do either of you know what coal means?
To call.
Does not mean to call. Oh, but coal.
All.
Yes, so coal means all, but actually there's another word, Curtis, that you might be thinking of that's sounds the same, coal, and that means the voice or the sound.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's similar. But coal, written like this, sounds like coal with the O sound.
Now
Okay.
that one is really not fair.
The sharing the dots?
Yes.
Yes, no, it's not very fair.
Oh no, I
We're
mean the coal. Coal.
Oh, the coal?
The aw sound.
Yes. Yeah, it's not, but it shows up all over the place. So it's once you see it, you get used to it. We're just going to try the first column here, but um, in a lot of prayer books, they're very nice and they won't do this to you. But in some prayer books, they will do this to you and they're not as nice. So, uh, for example, with the word Moshe, when you have that cholam over the mem and the dot over the shin, because they're right next to each other, the editor will just write one dot. So they'll combine the dot together. Sometimes the editor's nice, sometimes the editor's less nice. So we're going to practice the less nice editor's version. Um, so Pam, how would you say number 1?
Choshech.
Nice, great. So you're combining that O sound over the chet with the dot over the shin. Nice. Um, and then Curtis, try number 2.
Hmm. Would it be share?
So it definitely ends with share. Um, but if we know that the ayin needs some sort of vowel, right? So
Right.
what vowel do you think is attached to the ayin?
Um, the hold on.
Nice. So what would just that first syllable sound like?
Oh, share.
Great. Yeah, oh share. Right?
That's
That's
one of the cases where the dot is shared with the iron.
exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great. Actually, I'm going to ask Curtis, can you try number 3?
I can try it. Um, ka, Kadosh.
Yeah, exactly. Except you're doing Pam's thing of shortening the ah sound. So can you say kadosh?
Kadosh.
There we go. Nice.
Kadosh, Kadosh,
And
Kadosh.
exactly. And I caught myself when I was davening earlier. I was saying, I was saying Baruch, or I was saying uh, Baruch instead of Baruch. So I catch myself doing that too when you get too used to Hebrew. All right. And Pam, try number 4.
Lil Bosch.
Nice.
Bosch.
To
Lil
wear.
Bosch.
Great.
Hmm.
And if we have time, we can go back to the rest of these, but that's the basic idea. One dot makes 2 sounds. I think, is this the one? I think this is the one Pam was asking about earlier, where if you've got this ending here, if you've got a kamatz and a yud and a vav, then it makes the av sound. Okay, so before we read full words, we're gonna do the endings first. So Curtis, can you try just reading number 1, knowing that this ending sounds like of. So all you have to do is plug in the first letter.
Love.
Great. So now try the full word.
I was so happy and proud of myself.
That's why we started with that.
Yeah. Quick questions.
Yeah.
Is that one word?
So lav is just an ending, but alav is one word. Oh, I just told you
Okay.
the word.
Wait, no,
Now
I
I
got it.
guess
I love. Yes.
allow. Okay. There we go. You're not off the hook. All right. Um, in fact, Curtis, can you try number 2?
Sure, I can try.
Great.
Nav.
Mm-hmm.
Panav.
Yeah. Nice. And then try number 3 also, Curtis.
Dav.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that's a tricky one there. Adav.
What was that first letter?
It was a Yod.
Mm-hmm.
Yadav.
Beautiful. All right. And Pam, you're going to try 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, and by the way, this is one I haven't seen before.
Good.
I may have seen it, but I may have been mispronouncing it. Vav.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Oha Vav.
Nice. His lovers.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oha Vav. Okay.
Nice.
Cove.
Hold on. What was that
That's
first letter?
cove. Cove.
What's the vowel
Kav.
underneath? Yeah, there we go.
Kav. Darachav.
Beautiful.
And Av. Lireav.
Nice. All right. And then for either of you, whoever can figure it out, any idea about number 9, what that word is?
B'mitzvotav.
Tav.
Yeah, there you go. Right?
Good job.
It's a sight word. Fantastic. And we went over this, the vo and the vitsivanu. Great. Questions so far about any of these weird endings?
I don't have any questions about it. It's just remembering them, like remembering all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to take practice and, repetition.
Absolutely. And we have all of these are online, all of these I think I put this one online on the website, or on the Google Drive, I should say. Um, and we have these recordings of these classes if you want to check how things are said. But the other thing that I would definitely recommend is getting, if you've got it in your budget, to get this Teach Yourself to Read Hebrew book, especially the one that comes with the recording. Pam, you've already got a book with a book with Hebrew and the recordings behind it, so you might not need to get an extra one. You probably don't need to get an extra one, but if you're looking for something to practice with, Curtis,
Hmm.
it's a kind of, and it's set up in a way that you could do 1 page a day just as review. It'll start out pretty easy for you, and then it'll get progressively more difficult.
Okay.
I think I have sound back.
Great.
It's telling me my internet connection is unstable.
Okay, well, I can still see you. And just as a reminder, I know we've gone over this more than once, but always good to know when you see these 4 letters in a prayer book. Don't try to pronounce them, because it's just what we do in Jewish tradition is if we're saying it in the middle of the prayer, we'll say Adonai, which literally means my Lord, but it's kind of it's a placeholder. And then in some circles, we'll pronounce it as Hashem, which means the name. Same thing with this. There's no such thing as Yah. It's just another way for if a publisher wants to make sure that no one's throwing out the name of God, they'll put those 2 yuds in so that their book can be thrown out and not necessarily buried. Any sort of Elohim or El, Eloheinu, Eli, Elohecha, anything that starts with that El sound is going to be God. So God is kind of the generic name for God. Actually, it's a plural name, but don't tell anybody. And Adonai is the way that we represent God's holy name, right? And I'm just looking at timing right now. Is there anything that you all want to make sure that we review before we head out today?
No, like
I
I said
want to
before. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
Mhm.
all I was going to say is thank you so much, because you've been wonderful.
You've both been wonderful. And everybody who's had, I know that we've had like 2 or 3 each time, but when we've had 2 or 3, I think it's been a great group.
And by the way, I apologize for being late. We were eating dinner, and all of a sudden I looked up and it was 7 after 7.
Dinner's
So
always important. Dinner is always important. And but I'm glad that I got to learn with you. I know that that Jason has asked for if there, actually, and a few other people have asked if there could be another class for, I know all the letters, I know all the vowels, I just need to learn how to read a little bit faster and a little bit more confidently. So we might have a few sessions like that in the spring, and start brainstorming whatever you need for the spring. Just let me know. I think both of you have my phone number, and while I won't be answering synagogue things, happy to say hi.
Okay.
sounds good.
All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful end of your week.
Thank
And
you.
You
it's
You
been
too.
too.
wonderful to learn with
And
you.
an early Shabbat